Welcome to the Live to 110 podcast. My name is Wendy Myers, and you can find me on live to110.com. But only go there if you want to live a long, healthy life and learn how to do that. You can find this video podcast on the YouTube channel, Wendy Live to 110, and I've got all kinds of other videos on there, the Modern Paleo Cooking Show, and lots of other different kinds of instructional videos, and the well over 100 episodes of the Live to 110 podcast, so definitely go there and subscribe. Today we have Igor Milevskiy on the podcast today. He is the designer of PureEffects filters. These are the water filters that I use myself and that I recommend. So we're going to be talking all about water filters. I get hundreds of questions every month about what kind of water should I drink, what kind of water filters do I use, should I drink in plastic or glass, and so many questions. So we're going to be answering all those on the podcast today. Please keep in mind that this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or health condition and is not a substitute for professional medical advice. The Live to 110 podcast is solely informational in nature, so please consult your healthcare practitioner before engaging in any treatment that we suggest today on the show. And I am finally about to launch my new health program called Body Bio Rehab. I'm thrilled that it's finally going to be launched on May 1st. That's our target date. It may be a little bit delayed because there's always so many last minute details, and we're trying to make it just perfect. I'm a perfectionist, so I want it to be just right. And this is the program I've been working on for months. It's all about diet, supplementation, exercise, stress relief, improving your sleep, and detoxification. It's a pretty comprehensive program, and it's a very good deal. It's going to be $49, and you're going to get access to all the different modules that teach you the very basics about health, and also a basic supplement plan that everyone should be following that I give to my personal clients that I work with. And it's going to be giving you a 30-day meal plan. And this is a great jumping off point to try the paleo diet and see if it works for you. And it's a program I've been working on for a long time, and it encompasses all of the information that I've learned over many, many years that I've been studying nutrition and health. And so I just wanted to bring it to you in a nice, tidy little package. So go check that out at bodybiorehab.com. Our guest today is Igor Milevskiy. He is the owner and head innovator at PureEffects Filters. You can find these filters in the Live to 110 store at store.live to110.com. This is a U.S. family-based business which manufactures water filtration systems with some of the most necessary and sought-after features in water filtration. Igor's natural love of harmony and nature has driven him to understand chemistry and biology since his very early years. And he's had about 19 years of experience in working with water, which has taught him that even the slightest disbalance in your water can hurt organisms. And after seeing that there was really no single water filter that could address all of the issues and known problems in our water supplies, including radiation, fluoride, drug residues, chloramines, disinfection byproducts, etc., Igor, together with his wife, began to strive to create a water filtration system that met all of these needs. And I found the same thing in my research. I just have not been able to find a water filter that does everything until I found PureEffects water filters that was recommended to me by a friend. And these are the water filters that I use and that I always recommend to all my clients. So I wanted to have Igor come on the podcast and talk about some of the issues with water filtration and dispel some of the myths about certain filtrations, and just really give us all the answers that I know all of you listeners are looking for. Water is a substance of life, and we have to drink clean water if you're going to be healthy and live to 110. Igor, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Wendy.
Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and how you got into designing water filters?
Okay, well, I've always been into biology, nature. I love plants, animals, and I've had a lot of experience taking care of aquarium fish, salt water, fresh water, you name it. And one thing that has taught me over the years is that if there's something just slightly wrong or off with the water, fish will get sick or they'll die or they won't breed. So the first lesson in my life that I learned is that water is crucial to even the smallest organisms, And then I carried that over into taking care of my own water as well. And this
Yeah.
is over for 19 years of my life, and which has brought me to this point. But definitely, water has been a major factor in my life, and I've studied that to find what's wrong with it and how to solve that.
So when did you start Pure Effects filters?
Pure Effect Filters was started, the company was created in 2009, and we launched the website in 2010.
Ah, okay.
So
And
5 years now.
okay. Yeah, and why don't you tell us a little bit about, why we want a water filter? How toxic exactly is the water coming out of the tap?
I don't want to scare your listeners, but we need to be aware of what we're putting in our bodies. Water being one of the most abundant substances, it's pretty bad. The more you look, the more you find, and that's certainly what my experience shows. The water treatment centers do a good job with what they're given. Not required to look for all the new emerging contaminants like drug residues or certain radioactive contaminants, and there's new disinfection byproducts that are coming about like NDMA, which is a result of chloramine disinfection. So the water contains all types of chemicals, heavy metals, fluoride, disinfection byproducts. You have all those mixing together, creating potentially new and unknown chemicals. You have microorganisms that survive this infection, kind of like antibiotic-resistant bacteria. They disinfect the water so the bacteria become stronger to resist that. So
Yeah.
now that's another issue. So it's a pretty big mess. So definitely, a water filter will solve that.
How do medications get into the water?
Well, it's excreted from people when they go to the bathroom. It's also when people flush their pills into the toilet, or when drug companies flush them illegally into the sewer system as well. And Associated Press did a study on that, and they've tested, I believe, 30 or 40 million water districts that supply 30 or 40 million people, and they found there was traces of heart medication, anxiety medication, hormones, of course, highly diluted, but still some medications are meant to work at very diluted concentrations. So this is definitely a problem.
I know. I guess there's some people innocently making some lemonade, and they've got all kinds of medications with
All of a sudden,
their.
they're feeling strange, right?
Yeah, and it just blows my mind that people still drink tap water. I mean, I've done a lot of research on it, but it's any easy information to get that there's so many toxins in tap water. It's insane to drink it. Absolutely insane.
Oh yeah. Once you become aware, you realize this is not water. This is some kind of medical cocktail.
Yeah. Yeah. So why don't we talk about the chlorine and fluoride that's added to the water in most municipal water sources and how this impacts health?
Well, chlorine is, it's a double-edged sword. In one aspect, it's there to help, to prevent your water from growing algae and bacteria before it gets to you, so you can have nice, clean water. And then the other aspect is that it's a disinfectant, so it's meant to kill bacteria. And one thing I've read and researched is that there's potentially can kill the probiotics in your stomach, because it doesn't select the bad guys. It can also target the good guys, the good bacteria. That's the double-edged sword aspect, and also that it mixes with organic matter in the water, like decaying leaves or some other things, and it creates byproducts, which is new types of chemicals like chloroform, trihalomethanes, and others that are also have been found to be not very good for your health. So, what are you going to do? You have to disinfect the water, but then you have to deal with the consequences.
Yeah.
So that's chlorine and chlorine and chloramine. Those are the problems with the disinfectants. Fluoride is highly controversial, as you may know. And there's more and more credible research pointing to the fact that fluoride is not good for you. And I agree, it's not. Not the type that they're putting into the water. There's a natural form of fluoride called calcium fluoride, which is naturally occurring in nature, and that seems to be benign for the most part. However, when it comes to the synthetic fluorides that the districts add, those tend to be the ones that are of concern. There's been lots of studies by credible people, doctors, scientists, that found that it inhibits certain enzymes in the body. Cholinesterase is one of them. It also affects the mind. There was a recent research by Harvard University showing that it lowers IQ.
Oh, wow.
So, certainly we'd like to remove that out of the water, and we do. And, the districts are starting to realize that in some places and starting to cut down on the amounts they're adding, or, phasing it out entirely. So that's a good thing.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and then not to mention how these halogens, chlorine and fluoride, block the uptake of iodine into the thyroid and reduce thyroid function too.
Yeah, and I heard it's also affects pineal gland, which is responsible for sleep and weight control and things like that. So it's definitely, when there's so much question marks and so much potential issues, you really have to be careful. Even when you take a toothpaste, right, that has fluoride in it, there's a warning on the back that says to call the poison control center if you swallow it.
Yeah.
And that should be already a red flag for anybody who's concerned about that.
Yeah. And so what do you think about bottled water, say even the premium waters like Fiji, for example?
No matter how nice bottled water is, no matter how expensive, you don't know exactly where it's coming from or what was done to it. That's number one. And number two is it's most of the time it's put in plastic bottles. So the water can be perfect, right? It can be from a pristine spring, but once they put it in that plastic bottle, and the German studies have shown that there's thousands of petrochemicals and hormone disruptors that leach from the bottle plastic into that water. So essentially it's incubating in that plastic, for months or weeks or however long it's sitting in there, and then you're drinking it. So that's my concern with plastic bottles. Yeah. And also the waste and the expense. It's a lot cheaper to filter the water.
Yeah. And so what about contamination of groundwater? Say there's lots of springs in the United States, like Arrowhead and many other springs. Is there an issue with contamination of chemicals from companies that are dumping and these chemicals into the groundwater, and then can that seep into the aquifers?
That's a very good point, actually. It's certainly a possibility. You probably know if they've been caught or not if you've researched that. I know there's a lot of dumping going on here in New York where we are. There's companies that have dumped contaminants into the Hudson River. And, so it happens. There's accidents. There's nuclear power plants that leak. There was a leak a few years ago in the Pennsylvania nuclear power plant. Spilled spilled thousands of gallons of radioactive water in the river there. Yeah. So it's, we've messed up our nature. And there's definitely a possibility that this is going on.
Okay, and so let's talk a little bit about your filters, the PureFX water filters.
Sure.
These are the filters that I recommend to all my clients because I use them at home. I think they're amazing. I also supplement, I drink spring water as well and from glass bottles. But I love the PureFX water filter as well. I drink that as well. So how do your filters differ from the other water filters on the market? Can you explain what advantages your systems have compared to the common filtration options? Like let's start with reverse osmosis.
Sure. That's the most common one, I think, right? That's usually what people go for when they really want to get a system, or that's usually what's recommended. The problem is, based on my research and experience with the different systems, is that reverse osmosis was initially designed to create water for industrial purposes, like pharmaceutical manufacturing or electronic manufacturing, where deionized water, or water without any ions, no minerals, no electrolytes, just pure H2O was necessary. So there's no interference. And so that kind of got passed on to drinking water, The problem is it indiscriminately filters out all the good stuff as well. So it'll take out the minerals and electrolytes, and what happens then is that your water now becomes acidic because it's missing its natural buffers, like calcium and sodium, for example. And acidic water is corrosive. It'll react a lot more aggressively with things it comes in contact with. So it'll pick up plastic, it'll pick up metals, a lot easier. And so there's that aspect. And acidic water will also be less hydrating, according to some research I've seen. And it can potentially pull minerals out of the body as well.
Yeah, I can speak to the poor hydration aspect firsthand because I bought a water filter, reverse osmosis, thinking I was, getting the best water filter I could get, filtering out
Right.
all the toxins because it gets all the toxins out.
Right.
But I literally drank 10 glasses a day and I was still thirsty. And then after a couple weeks of that, it just dawned on me something is wrong here. And I went and researched and found a lot of information that reverse osmosis water does not hydrate you as well.
Yeah, there's a study done by World Health Organization researcher in Czech Republic. It's actually on our website on the frequently asked questions page. It's question number 2 there. And basically he's saying that, there has been a lot of neglect as to the nutritious aspect of water. It's always been, got to take everything out, got to clear it out, filter it, purify it. But we've forgotten to add things or keep the natural balance. So our filters certainly factor that in so they don't remove those minerals and electrolytes. In addition, reverse osmosis also tends to be wasteful. So especially if you're living in California or if you're want to conserve water overall, reverse osmosis will generally waste at least 2 times the amount of water it filters.
Yeah.
So if you want to create 1 gallon, you've just wasted 2. So that's also a negative aspect to the RO system. There's a few other things as well. The membrane is very thin and it can break. And you may not know it until you do a water test. And you may have impure water coming through because those membranes are very delicate. So those are the major aspects I'm not too happy about with those type of systems.
Yeah, because people only get them serviced maybe once a year. A lot of people probably lag and do it every 1.5 or 2 years, and you might be drinking toxic water.
Yeah, there was somebody, I go on forums often and check what people write and, what people are generally thinking and discussing. And there was a person who had a reverse osmosis system, and he used that to put that in his aquariums, when he changed the water. And one day he did the change, and the fish died. All his fish died, and he didn't know what's wrong until he checked the water, and his membrane broke. So he was putting water in that's contaminated with disinfectants and other things. So until something like that happens, you may not know, or you just have to do a test every day to make sure it's not breaking through.
Yeah. Oh, the poor fish.
Yeah, what can I say? You got to use pure effect.
Yeah. So let's talk about distilled water. This is a water that many people drink to detox or whatnot. So tell us about some potential issues with distilled water.
Okay, distilled water is similar to reverse osmosis as far as, it takes out the minerals because the minerals are too heavy. They don't evaporate with the water vapor during the distillation. However, some volatile chemicals do. There are certain VOCs that are as light as air or lighter than air or water, and they will rise with the vapor into the distill chamber. So there's the risk of having that, and also the demineralization, which acidifies the water just like reverse osmosis. And also, you're wasting a lot of electricity. If you're concerned about that, you're wasting electricity, and if there's no power, there's no distillation. So it's not fully reliable in case of power outages as well.
Okay, and isn't it a hungry water? Can it rob minerals from your body because it has no minerals in it?
Yeah. Water is looking always to find harmony. It's looking to equalize. So that's why it'll absorb things into itself until it reaches, fulfillment, so to speak, in nature. And when it's empty, it's going to react. It becomes acidic. And as you know, acidic acid or acidic things, they tend to corrode and to react with other things. So water without minerals, I would certainly say that's not natural water, and I don't recommend that type of water for drinking.
Yeah, I don't either. Definitely not. So
Yeah.
what about gravity-fed filters like the Berkeys and things like that? What are some of the issues with the gravity-fed filters?
Okay, yeah, those systems, they're good for, in my opinion, they're good for emergencies or where you have no water coming out of the faucet, or where you have a lot of time and you can wait for that water to drip down and filter with the force of gravity. The problem is they're limited to how much water can filter because they have a reservoir, and if you needed to make a big pot of soup and make some tea, and you may not have enough. Or if you needed some filtered water quickly, you may not have it very quickly. You may have to wait an hour or two, depending on the system you get. But they're good for emergencies, and they're good for situations where you need to pour water in externally where you don't have water in a tap.
Do they get out metals, heavy metals, and other things that we want to remove from water?
I believe some of them do. I don't think all of them do. It really depends what type of cartridge they have in there. Some of them may just have a carbon filter, which is usually not enough to remove the metals. Carbon is mainly for organic chemicals. If they have some heavy metal reduction media, then they will. So it really depends on what's in there.
Okay, let's talk about carbon filters. What are some of the issues with carbon filters? Because they don't get out a lot of chemicals and things like that, correct?
Well, it depends. There's different types of carbon. Some of them are very low grade and have a different pore structures that really not effective for chemicals like volatile organics and others that have a really small pore molecular size, I should say. Whereas a coconut shell carbon will do better than a coal-based carbon. So you have to look at the type of carbon that's in the system. If you're just saying activated carbon, that can mean many different types of things. What type of activated carbon is it? If it's coconut shell, it'll remove volatile chemicals well. If it's coal-based, it may remove other things well. If it's wood-based, it may deal with chloramine better. So it really depends. Our system has all three types. The 3-chamber units that we offer. They have all three types of carbon to catch all the different, range of chemical molecules out there. So we achieve the macro, meso, and micro pore structures. So big, smaller, and tiny to catch those molecules. And also, it is catalytic grade, meaning that the carbon is specially processed to speed up the decomposition of chemicals when it comes in contact with them. So, for example, chloramine, which is chlorine and ammonia, it's a new type. Well, it's not new, but it's more often being used now as disinfection. Chloramine cannot be removed by regular carbons. It doesn't matter if it's coconut shell or wood-based or coal-based. It needs to be catalytic carbon. It needs to be special grade, and all three of the carbons in our system are catalytic.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I have to say, I really love your filter. I think the water tastes great coming out of it, and you seem like you really covered all your bases, because when I was shopping around for a water filter originally, many, many years ago, you'd find a filter and it would get out a lot of things, but then it wouldn't do fluoride. And then you'd get a filter and it wouldn't filter heavy metals, but it'd do chemicals. And yours also filters radiation as well, correct?
Yeah, wide spectrum, both positive and negative charged ions. So, it addresses those contaminants as well.
So how did you decide to add a filtration system that filtered out radiation?
That idea came after Fukushima.
Oh.
I saw what happened in Japan, and I just so happened to come across a unique mineral that it's called a zeolite. And I saw its properties and I saw its uses. They used it in Chernobyl. They used it in the 3 Mile Island in the United States. And they're using it now in Fukushima. So it has a strong history of being very effective for removing, in particular, cesium and strontium radioisotopes. and some others. And we've secured a food-grade, specially processed zeolite that has been cleansed of all the impurities. It's actually double cleansed. And we've put it into the system. So now you have the power to filter out radiation out of your water in case it's in there. In some places it's there, especially well water can contain different types of radioisotopes.
Yeah, I love that. I have my clients take zeolite as well because
Yeah.
I take it. It's a wonderful way to grab onto metals and take them out of your body. And I didn't realize it also took out radioactive.
Yeah, certain types of radiation, not all. So
Yeah.
it's an amazing mineral. I'm sure you know, and it has that pore structure that allows it to catch many different things, pesticides as well, and it's just an amazing substance.
So, what are some of the other components that you have on your water filters?
You mean as far as the media inside, or
Yeah.
the technical features?
Yeah, the medium inside. Like, what is the medium and what does it filter out?
Okay, well, I mentioned the 3 catalytic carbons, 3 different types. Those address all the different chemicals as far as the organic and synthetic chemicals. We also have the zeolite, which takes out radiation and heavy metals. And we also have special Fluorsorb media, which is a carbon and calcium-based media to absorb the fluoride. And we don't use alumina. There's some companies that use activated alumina, which is basically an oxidized form of aluminum. So we don't use that. And we also have some natural calcium in the system as well to neutralize any acids and gently raise pH.
And do you also have a revitalizer attached to it as well? Does that restructure the water?
Well, the restructuring happens as it passes through all this media. And so the water naturally, as it passes through the zeolite, through the KDF, through the calcium, it actually becomes revitalized because you've taken out the interfering chemicals. You've added some negative electrons, which come from the KDF 55, and that neutralizes the positive charge in the water, which is the oxidizing element. And you also added calcium, which raises the pH. So between all those factors combined, that's what we mean by revitalization. So the water tastes real, it tastes awake, it tastes alive. As you mentioned, you're enjoying the taste. So that's the result of all these things working in synergy.
And your filter also uses a KDF medium.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about what that is for? And it's commonly thought that can promote copper toxicity in the body. Many think that because the KDF medium is made with a copper alloy, that will cause it to leach copper into the body. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, I've certainly heard about that. I've seen people concerned about this, and we've actually went ahead and done an independent test to see the output water from our system versus the tap water. And the tap water naturally contained 0.03 milligrams a liter of copper. After passing through our system and the KDF, the result came to non-detectable. So there was actually less copper. There was no copper after the water went through our system. So there's no leaching. If there was leaching, the test would have showed that. The copper would have increased, and this was a highly sensitive test. Also, KDF works in a way that it shouldn't leach any copper because it creates a connection with zinc, and it's bonded with zinc, kind of like a magnet. And the very purpose of KDF is to remove copper. It's like a magnet. When you combine those two elements together, it creates an electrochemical reaction, and it works like a magnet. It actually pulls copper out of the water. So based on my research and based on the testing we've done, I have absolutely no concern about any copper leaching.
Okay. Yeah, good. Because that's a big concern with people. I've had a few readers email me like, doesn't a KDF leak copper and whatnot?
Yes.
And
Well, that's a valid concern because there's copper in there, but chemically it's bonded with zinc. So, and we've done testing to confirm there's no leaching. And in case your listeners would like some more reassurance on that, we've placed the layer of zeolite after the KDF media. And as you know, zeolite removes heavy metals.
Yeah.
So if there was any leaching or people are concerned about that, the zeolite would pick that up after the KDF. There would be no copper leaching at all.
Because zeolites grab copper as well, correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so can you talk about any other features of your water filter compared to other systems?
Okay, well, water ionizers tend to be another big subject people are looking into. They're very expensive, and there's a lot of claims, claims to fame that they're, doing magical things and restoring people's health. And sure, that can be the case in some people. Personally, I think it's because of a placebo effect.
Yeah, maybe they're just drinking more water with our new
Maybe they drink
expensive water
more.
machine.
Maybe yes, exactly. But those machines, they shouldn't really be classified as filters, although people do classify them that way. They have a very small filter typically inside. Their main purpose is to artificially alkalize the water, meaning that there's a reaction. I'm not an expert in ionizers, but I've learned a little bit. Is there's a reaction that occurs with the metal plates inside and electricity, and it concentrates the ions, so it raises that alkaline pH forcefully. And there's been some issues. There's been some research showing that it's actually not good for your health, and that it can be worse long term. And as far as having a little filter, it's not going to have enough filtration power to take out all these different contaminants like radiation, fluoride in many cases, and others. Or if it does, it's going to be very limited in the capacity, because most of the room in that system is taken up by the technology and the metal plates. Not to mention, it's sometimes a couple of $1,000s for a unit.
Yeah, the price point makes no sense to me whatsoever because unless you have multiple filtration systems going on, there is no point. Because the whole
Yeah.
point of having a water machine is to filter out all these horrible chemicals and toxins and things that are interfering in our health.
Yeah, we've had some naturopathic doctors call us and purchase our systems. They already had these ionizers, and they said, "Well, I'm looking for a good filter." So what they did is they actually, because they spent so much money, they connected our system, the output from our filter, to the input of their ionizer. So they're cleaning the water with our unit, and then
Yeah.
they the ionizer, because it's not enough. And some people just entirely replace their ionizers after they've read some research online, and they're not feeling comfortable about that technology anymore. So yeah, they're not very good filters, and there's questionable science behind its health effects.
And so, can you talk a little bit about a whole home filtration system? Because this makes perfect sense to me because I know a lot of people that, and this used to be myself, where they'll be drinking this very healthy water. They have a water filtration system for their, kitchen tap or whatnot, but then
Hmm.
they're showering and bathing every day in this water that's filled with toxic chemicals and
Right.
fluoride and chlorine, and it absorbs through your skin. So, can you talk a little
Yeah.
bit about the issues with that and how people can benefit from a whole home filter?
Sure. Yeah. It's that's one thing some people may overlook, is that when you're in the bath and when you're in the shower, the skin does absorb. I haven't done the research how much. I've seen there's been studies and some other facts online. Different parts of the skin absorb different quantities of contaminants. Um, Another thing is that the vapor, when you're in the shower, the water's hot or very warm, and it's some chemicals evaporate at that point. Chlorine can turn into a gas, and some other volatile chemicals can evaporate into the water. And so you're breathing that while you're taking a shower, and you're breathing that while you're doing the dishes, because that water, that steam or that water vapor is going in your face. Or if your dishwasher is working, that vapor coming out of it, that steam is going into your home. Um, so certainly, that's not a toxic-free home if you don't have those sources of water covered. Um,
Yeah, because if you smell chlorine, guess what? You're breathing it into your nose. Because I've gone to some people's homes and or taken a shower, whatnot, and the smell of chlorine is just bowls me over. It's just so strong.
yeah, yeah, it's it stays on your skin, it damages your hair, it dries your skin. That's just chlorine. You also have other things you can't smell and taste that affect your hair and skin negatively potentially. So I'm not going to give any health advice, but who knows? Maybe it's maybe hair loss can happen more if you have those type of noxious chemicals on your skin.
Yeah. And let's talk a little bit about well water, because I have a
Mhm.
lot of clients that they have their little well and they think that they've got this pure fresh water, but I find that a lot of them have manganese and iron toxicity and other heavy metals, very very toxic at very toxic levels from
Mhm.
their well. Can you talk a little bit about that and why, if anyone has a well, they need to get a well water filter that you provide?
Absolutely, yeah. It's well water is typically a lot more nutritious than city water because of all the micro elements and nutrients that are naturally occurring. However, there are contaminants that seep into that and get into that. Some of them are naturally occurring, like radon or uranium, and others are man-made, like if you're living by a farm and you have pesticides and herbicides that are being used in the agricultural area, those can run off into the water and seep into the wells. If you're living by a nuclear power plant, who knows what's getting in there from that. There's all types of, water is dynamic. It's a universal lubricant. It absorbs whatever it comes in contact with, and our environment's polluted. So, although well water is more nutritious generally than city water, it's also open to contamination and also bacteria as well. Bacteria tend to, like E. coli and coliform bacteria, tend to be prevalent in well waters. So our well water system is specifically designed to target the most common well water contaminants that I just mentioned, and it doesn't take out the good stuff. It doesn't take out the minerals or the sodium or the electrolytes, potassium, magnesium, but it protects you from the stuff that doesn't belong.
Yeah, and any of you clients, listeners out there, if you're drinking well water, then you really need to be concerned about potential iron toxicity, which causes a lot of inflammation in the body, manganese toxicity, which interferes in copper metabolism, and that will cause metabolic issues and potentially weight gain issues down the road. You cannot have healthy copper regulation in your body if you have manganese toxicity. And I see manganese toxicity with almost every single person that drinks from a well,
Mm,
even if it's filtered.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, too much of a good thing is not good either.
Yeah. So that's something to be concerned about. If you're drinking well water, it's time to get a hair test just to see.
Right.
So let's talk about the little pitcher filters that people like to use, like Brita and Pure filters, that I know a lot of people are using, thinking that, oh, they're drinking filtered water.
Right. That can be dangerous because although those type of systems are, personally think they're entry level filters. That's the type of system you buy when all of a sudden you decide, I need filtered water, and why not? I'll spend $30 or $40. I'll get a pitcher, and job's done. I'm finished. Solutions found. Right.
Yeah.
The problem is once you start to dig deeper and you become more educated about what's in the water and the different materials used in the filter and the basic filters, and you realize they're not doing much. They may just take out the chlorine, some heavy metals. They're not taking out the fluoride. They're not taking out the radiation. They may not take out, the wide range of chemicals, the disinfection byproducts like the NDMA from chloramine. So they're very basic entry-level filters, and I personally think the reason they're dangerous is because once you get them, you think that now you can drink lots of clean water, and you start drinking more. And the problem is, you can be drinking more water that's still contaminated and doing yourself more harm in some cases. So I'd be careful about that, and certainly do your research. But as an entry-level filter, I guess it's better than drinking out of the tap.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to share about your Pure Effects filters?
We're always innovating. We're always coming out with solutions that people seek and ask for. We're always following what's going on with water. This is first and foremost a passion for clean water, and then a business. And we don't use any cheap parts, so you may see that your system is very well built, Wendy. That the components are solid quality, and it's designed to last. and it's not, we all the cartridges are manufactured in the USA. The heart of the system, there's no inferior parts. So a lot of attention has gone into that as well. We have a 2-year warranty on our systems, and we'll even help people beyond that reasonably, because we take care of our customers. So this is basically a product of love.
Yeah, it's a great product, and I love all the information that you have on your website about clean water, and I just have done so much research myself, and I can tell you've just really covered all the bases, especially with the radiation filter. I think that's incredibly important, because I have a lot of clients that do a hair analysis, especially on the West Coast, and they have a lot of uranium in their hair, and a lot of practitioners think it's from Fukushima fallout. And the hair tests don't test cesium or other radioactive metals, but a lot of my clients have strontium as well, which is somewhat radioactive. And I think that's a really important thing to filter out of the water.
Yeah, I mean, strontium and uranium. Strontium can be just a metal, but it's usually, that's the main one from my research. It's coming from Fukushima. Is the strontium 90 and the cesium 134, 137. And those are the ones the zeolite targets the most.
Yeah.
So that's the best thing for that. And uranium's typically from well water. I found there was a customer in New Hampshire recently who purchased our system because he had 3 times the EPA limit. He had 99 milligrams a liter of uranium in his water.
Wow.
Yeah. So he's crossed his fingers and said, "I hope your system works." And a couple of weeks later, after he's purchased it, I get another email from him, and he sends me an updated report from the water company that he used, and it's showing less than 1. So the test was, it couldn't detect how low it was, so it just said less than 1. So it removed over 99% of the uranium for him. So we were very happy about that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real life example, real life test.
Yeah, it's amazing what can be in water, and that is people just are not thinking about the water that they're drinking. And I think it's so important that people really start researching their water. You can do research at you can look up on the internet and see what toxins are found in your tap water. Each city has a database where they see what toxins are in the water, and they have to publish it. And the Los Angeles water, I think it has 30 different chemicals that they have found in the water.
Yeah.
And but the city is just not doing anything about it.
They're not required to. The law doesn't obligate them to, and they don't have the funds. Maybe a lot of states are going broke and having budget problems. So the infrastructure is old. They don't have money to invest into that. So there's going to be issues. So the best thing, even if they were new, they still have to disinfect. They still have to add chemicals into your water that are mandated just to process that water. So when it gets to it's processed water, it's not natural water. Yeah. So the best way to handle that is to freshly filter that directly out of the tap.
Yeah, and what I always tell clients is that you just can't be healthy. You can't be healthy and you can't recover your health if you are drinking toxic water day in and day out. If you're going to restaurants that are using tap water in the soup, like you really have to think about all the water sources that you're ingesting.
And you can tell if you've been drinking good filtered water and you go to a restaurant, have a sip of their table water, even some of the better restaurants, and you could tell it's not filtered. You could smell and taste those chemical aftertastes.
Yeah, and that's why I don't get iced tea or anything like that at restaurants, because it's made with tap water. It's toxic tap water. Even if they say it's filtered, I still don't trust it because I know it's probably some crappy filter.
Who knows, right? But yeah, it's. I always say no ice either. If somebody's gonna serve me, I make it a point to say no ice, and because that definitely ruins the experience there. But yeah, I mean, this is a product that people, we make a product that people. When they do a lot of research and they become aware and educated, they can appreciate this. I think most people, that aren't aware, they may see that, they may not understand it, but what you're doing and what we're doing is we're trying to educate people. That's why I have so much information on our site, is so that way, you don't just buy a filter, you understand what you're buying and why. And I see a lot of companies just hide a lot of the stuff, and they don't explain all the different medias they use, and that always makes me wonder what's in there.
Yeah, I've had a lot of clients send me emails. What do you think about this filter? What do you think about that filter? And I go to the website and it's this real flashy website,
Hmm.
and there's just no information about what it filters or any kind of tests that are done on the water after it's been filtered. They're just really
Hmm.
flashy, gimmicky marketed websites.
Yeah.
So that's what I really appreciate on your site. There's just a wealth of information on there. But can you tell me about some of the models of filters that you have? Because you've got
Sure.
models that are, countertop ones. Then you have like under sink ones. And then you have like the city hole system and the
Hmm.
well water. Can you tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about the different models?
Sure, yeah, we have a different range of system depending on the need. Our entry-level filter is pretty comprehensive. It was featured on Fox News, actually. And this filter contains the KDF, the zeolite, and catalytic carbon, along with some natural calcium. It's a very good basic filter. So if you're not looking to filter fluoride, because some people think fluoride is good for you and you can't change their mind, or if you don't have fluoride in the water, and you just want a very basic filter and you're on a limited budget, this will be many times more effective than a pitcher or a little faucet mount filter. This is, uses our advanced technology in it. That's $139 for that. Now we can go up and look at our more advanced system. That has two chambers, and that one filters a much wider range of chemicals. Filters giardia. It's called our classic system. It filters cryptosporidium. That's the cysts that survive this infection. And then if you want to filter fluoride, that's the next level. That system has three chambers, and it has all the features the other two have, plus the fluoride removal. And that one has a whole chamber dedicated just to fluoride, because fluoride is pretty hard to remove, and you need to do it right. You need to have enough media. You need to have the media placed in the right sequence, and also the flow rate has to be regulated. So our filters regulate the flow rate so the water is not going through the system too fast, has enough time to filter. And so that's our best-selling model. It's called the Pure Effect Ultra, and it filters all those contaminants and fluoride. And it comes in both countertop and under-counter models, versions.
And so if any listeners want to get one of these filters, just click on the link below in the blog post, the corresponding blog post, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can just click below in the description, and you can learn more about the water filters. But Igor, I have a question I like to ask all of my guests. What do you think is the most pressing health issue in the world today?
You know, that's a good question. I think all health problems, with the exception of physical bruising and things like that, I think all health problems and diseases come from a lack of awareness about what you're doing in your life, what you're doing to your body. I think lack of awareness and lack of wisdom is the most pressing health issue, if you put it globally like that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that a lot of people are, wandering around out there and not questioning what they're eating, not questioning what they're drinking, and just think miracles are going to happen with their health. And you have to inquire and read labels and, read books on health if you plan on living a disease-free life.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be wise about what you're doing to yourself, I think, and pay attention to what you're eating and drinking, like you said, and just do some research, because there's a lot of people that claim to do good things and claim to have the best product, and you really have to look into it yourself and understand what it's made of and how it works. And I think a lot of it is, a lot of people suffer. A lot of suffering comes from also the mental aspect. A lot of fears, a lot of worries, a lot of false beliefs. So there's, remember, we're body and mind. And so I think that, we have to watch what we put in our stomach, but also what we put into our mind, what we believe and what we embrace.
Yes, very good point. Very good point.
So I was big on that actually. I was into spiritual self-realization, and so that's a big part of my principles as well.
Oh, I love it. Well, Igor, thank you for sharing that, and thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. It was nice sharing all this with you and your listeners.
Well, thank you so much. And listeners, also, I forgot, if you want to also learn more about Pure Effect water filters, you can go to my store. I have all the filters in the store. Go to store.live to110.com, live to110.com, and you will find all the models in the store. You can learn more about them. And if you want to learn all about detoxification and the modern paleo diet, my version of paleo, and how to heal your health conditions naturally, go check out my site, live to110.com. And you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter at I Will Live to 110, and also on the YouTube channel at Wendy Live to 110. And of course, I'm on all the social media, Instagram, Google+, Pinterest. I'm all over the place. You can't shake me. And thank you guys so much for listening to the Live to 110 podcast. Well, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and how you got into functional medicine?
Well, I guess first I'll start with functional medicine because a lot of people haven't heard about what that is. So, functional medicine is about finding the cause, fixing the cause so that you can feel normal again. So basically, find the cause means we look at the body as a whole because everything in your body really is connected. And we understand the intricacies between hormone balance and brain health and digestion and the immune system and all of that because really it's all connected. And again, the goal is to find the root underlying cause and then treat that naturally, which usually means using diet, exercise, stress management, taking the right supplements, the herbs, using other kinds of natural treatments to really get your body back into balance so that you regain your health again and you feel normal again. So functional medicine is not Band-Aid medicine, which is what most medicine is these days. It's about really getting to the cause and fixing it. So that's what functional medicine is.
And so why is functional medicine important in helping to resolve the underlying causes of fatigue?
Well, I guess if you never get to the root cause, the fatigue is always going to be there and you'll be on medications for life or you're just going to keep suffering for life. So I find actually a common story when patients come to see me at my private practice at Functional Medicine Ontario. I often hear them say, Dr. Carey, I've been to my family doctor. They've run all the tests. Everything is normal. The doctor doesn't know what's wrong. They told me I need to take a vacation or I need to take 3 months off of work on burnout leave. Or my other option was to start an antidepressant. And patients know intuitively that there's something wrong inside. There's something out of balance. And so that's why they come to see me for functional medicine to really find what's wrong. Otherwise, like I said, you'll never get better.
Yeah. And so what are some of the underlying causes of fatigue?
Oh, that's a really good question. So in my book, Reclaim Your Energy and Feel Normal Again, I outline 8 out of the 14 basic causes that I found. So at the top of the list, the top 2, which should always be checked, and these are the 2 things that medical doctors typically check. First on the list is anemia, and second is thyroid. And actually, a lot of people have thyroid problems, even though they've been told their thyroid is normal.
Yeah.
And then above and beyond that, we have nutrient deficiencies. There can be food allergies and food sensitivities. There can be infections in the gut, like parasite infections or bacterial overgrowth or yeast infections. There can be imbalances within the brain. There can be many different reasons. So that kind of gives you an idea of some of the things that when a patient comes in, I'm checking